Can You Ever Forgive Me? 2018 film starring Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. It's based on a novel under the same title, written by Lee Israel, about the real story that she was involved in. It takes place in the early 1990s New York. Israel, played by McCarthy, is a middle-aged writer specializing in biographies. When we meet her, she's down on luck. Her last books are not selling all that well. She's working on the next one half-heartedly, but we get the sense that it's probably not going to be a hit either. Her agent stopped returning her calls. She's low on money. Things look like shit. But it's also not like she's an innocent victim in all of this. She's a very abrasive person, an asshole, to speak plainly, to everyone around her. She's an alcoholic, lives alone with her cat, has difficulties opening up and being nice to people. So naturally, there's very little goodwill that she has built up with the people around her. One day she meets another writer, Jack Hawk, played by Grant, in a bar. The two start drinking together, which leads to the start of a weird friendship. And as that is going on, something more important begins to happen. Lee stumbles upon old letters written by the person she's currently writing about, and she sells them to collectors to get some money for her immediate needs. What astonishes her are the high prices that she's getting, which leads her to try and fabricate more of those letters. Initial success leads to things escalating. Soon she's using several different typewriters to impersonate several different dead people and writes counterfeit letters to make money, which eventually may lead to trouble. Now, I have to say I really liked this film. The first thing that struck me was the two central performances. They're really good on their own. They also have superb chemistry between one another. And interestingly enough, in both cases, the casting is pretty much against type. McCarthy is known for these silly, crass comedies. This time around, she plays a much more serious role. The movie itself has comedic elements and is quite funny at times, but the character is fairly serious, and also something we don't see all that often in Hollywood, an average-looking middle-aged woman that is pretty much depressed, hates her life and struggles to make ends meet. I think McCarthy puts a lot of nuance into that role. We get the sense that underneath all this apparent anger and constant abrasiveness, there is an underlying layer of sorrow and loneliness, and a feeling of being unfulfilled in your work, which goes unappreciated, even though Lee is herself quite clearly passionate about it. Then we have Richard E. Grant, who is often typecast as this British classic villain. This time around he plays the exuberant, gay, energetic character. On the surface, he's like the opposite of Lee, very out there, very charming, smiling and cracking jokes all the time. At one point it is said about him that he fucked his way through Manhattan, which is a great line. But again, underneath his surface, there are some deep scars as well. He's also having alcohol trouble, doesn't really have a place to stay, is not welcome in the writing community, and quite lonely. And I think the friendship between the two characters is the emotional core of the film, and the reason it works so well. Put it like this: the main plot about the forgeries and fake letters it is fun to watch, especially knowing it's based on truth. But I do feel it could have come off as a bit cold and hollow if we didn't have these two characters interact with one another and develop their wonderful friendship. I also loved how the movie looks and sounds like. The visuals are for the most part cold, dreary, the colors of winter in New York, which accentuates the feeling of loneliness, except two types of scenes. Whenever we're in a bookstore interior, or we have Lee and Jack together, those were typically warmly lit scenes, which in turn builds the warmth of the scene itself, the feeling of safety and comfort. And music is mostly jazzy, also something that fits very well with the New York setting. So in technical terms, I think there's quite a lot to praise the movie for as well. In general, I found it really good. And again, I do think as just a film about fraud with the undertones of this middle-aged loneliness and feelings of unaccomplishment, it would have been decent at the best. But the two central performances and their chemistry together elevate the film into something really splendid.